Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach, and today we have with us Jason Linett, and he is the upcoming author of the book, Work Smart Business, Lessons Learned from Hypnotizing 250,000 People and Building $1 Million Brand. Jason, welcome to the program.
Mike, so good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hey, so I love those long titles because they just kind of get so descriptive, because if it was just Work Smart Business, great, get in line with the other 4 trillion books that sound like, working smart in your business. But now we're starting to get down to the nitty gritty of hypnotizing, not just 4 or 5, but 250,000. So, check for credibility. And then what's the result of that? Building $1 million brand. So, boy, talk me through that whole concept, a little bit of your background, and then, how that whole title will deliver results.
Yeah, and thank you for highlighting that. It's actually, I shared the first draft of the project was kind of burying the fact that, yes, I'm a hypnotist. I do presentations on stage where I'm working with a lot of corporate and professional organizations, teaching how to internalize goals. But the origin story is also working with several thousand individual clients. And it was someone's advice to go, there's 1,000 business books every month. Only one is coming from a hypnotist. You need to slap it on the front cover of the book. Yep. But really, the message to unpack is that, own what it is that makes you unique. Own what it is that makes you stand out. So rather than at times trying to fit in and be a clone of everybody else, highlight those aspects. So, that could be anything. Maybe you've built your own business while also having a family, as many people struggle with that work-life balance. Maybe there's a way that you've kind of figured out how to tap into some sort of, let's call it automated mechanism that continuously grows your business. So really it's about, people talk about the USP, the unique selling proposition. Let's go with the more popular trending phrase of your secret sauce. So really the mission of all of it is that, yes, I'm in a profession where for some of the people I've worked with over the years, I've got to promise them that I'm not going to make them cluck like a chicken through hypnosis, which, as a side note, is something even I've never met a hypnotist who has done that. So it seems that misconception is a misconception all unto its own. But that opportunity where over the years I've branched out of the dollars for hours model. I've taken it from the one-to-one into the one-to-many, the opportunity to step onto the platform and teach and to guide, the mechanisms that I live by the catchphrase nowadays, that the world has become a whole lot smaller. So that ability to duplicate ourselves, whether it's videos in terms of a local business or even complete online courses that people are able to interact with and get as much benefit from you without even having to physically be in the room. So really, again, the mission is if I was able to do these things in a profession that honestly does have some barriers to it, let's now take that message out to people in business, whether it's the small business owner, the large business owner, even down to some of the trade skills, the web designer, the graphic designer, the photographer. Model what works and make it your own.
You mentioned small and big and large and medium, and I'm certain that your skills and your service would work for any size business, but do you find that one size or demographic of business either receives the content more receptively or is more prone to implement it and see results? The bigger ones could have great results because it's kind of like, wow, look at the train has left that station, and doing anything, polishing up what they're doing would really get some great results. But do you find that one over the other tends to be your sweet spot?
Well, I'd look at it from a different perspective, that I give a story that kind of intros where I'm going with this, that in the education world, especially, it's kind of starting off in my sort of healing modalities mindset of working with people in acupuncture, working with people who are health coaches and physical therapists and such, there always has been this tone, at least as long as I've been around it, that, well, it is better if you're in the room. It is better if you're actually in the space with them. And I was hearing that, and thanks to our 21st century technology, I was working remotely with clients around the world. I was doing some consulting through video conferencing software with people, all the way up to Australia and France at times. So rather than look at something and say, this one works better or this is the preferred method, I'd look at every single aspect of it and go, what are the advantages of this platform and how do we now make use of that in a better way?
Yeah.
So rather than thinking it's better in the one-to-one or the one-to-many, because the strength of the one-to-many is, let's say I've given a presentation for a business group and I'm teaching strategies to internalize goals, one of which, of course, happens to be self-hypnosis. Now you've got a team of people who are able to hold each other accountable. They have a similar working dialogue that can be made use of, which at the same time, if I'm working with one specific person, I know what their triggers are. I know what their concerns are, and the process becomes laser focused to them because they're getting that ongoing support, perhaps directly from me. So rather than look at it in terms of which group responds better, it's to take a step back and say, what strengths does this specific market have? I mean, I'll give a quick example here that there's something I did in terms of my online education programs, and this came about by an accident. That here's a technique I was doing a demonstration of, which we had the video of that, and then here's the video of me explaining it, followed by I wanted to share another video of me doing the demo. Now, I made a mistake, so this was entirely my fault, yet the result was not expected. What I did was I sent my graphic designer, my web designer, I sent her the entire library in the video hosting of, hey, here are the 5 videos of that demonstration, plug in number 2. And my instructions were not written clearly. So what did she do? She put all 5 demos in the video library in addition to the primary one. The response was incredible because now the audience, and I didn't know this until they caught it, they're going, oh, we love that you showed us the same technique 6 different times. we got to see how you customized it to each and every person and how it's a bare bones formula that it's now about the creativity and what comes up in the room. That's how you make it work.
And you're like, yeah, that's what I was going for.
It's like, yeah, exactly. And we suddenly went back through the video library. And I mean, this wasn't just for the sake of padding out an online course, but for some of the methods, there's like 5 or 6 or even sometimes more demonstrations of it. And it's not for putting more hours in and being able to boast. There's now more than 120 hours.
Right.
It's instead, I was listening to the audience. So that's something that, no matter the modality, if I did 8 demos of the same thing in a classroom setting, you would start to get bored. But in the at-home environment, it makes sense to kind of digest those as needed. So again, look at the advantage that each platform has and then listen and act upon that advantage.
Well, as needed is an interesting point, and it makes me think of something that I'm sure that you've coached on, taught on, but it's kind of like, hey, in 7 months, we're going to change our, online platform software. So please go through the training right now so that you're prepared. Well, that's an insane step because if I go through the 2-hour training, 1-hour training now, and then 6 months goes by, I'm not going to remember how to apply it. It's really kind of like real-time, just-in-time kind of work. So if you've got that kind of content in a training platform, well, now all of a sudden, if someone needs that specific thing in one technique, then they can watch that one thing over and over as they need it right there real-time. Whereas here's the soup to nuts, A to Z, how to do whatever it is, and you're kind of losing them because they feel overwhelmed.
Right, and it's where a lot of people, I'm sure, out there listening to this are in a service-based industry, that their business is based upon whether it's them going out and performing the service, or maybe they have a crew of people that they can then subcontract to, or just simply employees that go out and do it. It's that opportunity where you really can productize a service. And it's to look at it from the perspective that what are the individual module pieces of this that perhaps can stand alone. And to think of the thinking that how do I duplicate myself? And my formula over the years has always been, how do I remove myself physically from my business only when I'm increasing the value that I'm providing? So a simple example is that there's a bit of a sort of educational aspect to working with a one-to-one client, that I used to do that segment live with each and every person. And over time, that became a video. In terms of teaching, there's some elements that, I can make fun of this one as a hypnotist, there are some elements of teaching something, maybe it's a little bit more lecture-based, And let's phrase it this way, the audience begins to glaze over and not perhaps in the way that I intended. Yeah. Because it's a little bit more technically minded vocabulary, and even for a live event. Right. It's a little bit more techno-babble of a concept, and maybe, hey, you just signed up for the course. Here are these 3 audios. The class isn't for another month. Listen to them at your own convenience. But now, and the benefit of this becomes we get to hit the ground running on day one, as we all have a common vocabulary. Where, again, it's magical if you're in the room. No, it's boring as heck if you are. So recognize how
get some of those redundant rote things out of the way, and kind of using the same concept in, let's say, new client onboarding. So there might be steps 1 through 3, and the first thing you need to do is whatever that it is. Well, rather than you doing or saying the same thing over and over, create a quick little screen capture video of maybe you welcoming the client. Hey, thanks for making the decision to whatever it is. Hey, here's just a couple things you need to do. First, let me show you this on the screen, because you're going to log right in here and you're going to click here. And if you did that for maybe 5 minutes for each one of the steps of 2 or 3 steps, you now have a personalized, not using the person's name, but a really good feel of the onboarding. And then when you do your one-on-one session, if that were the case of what you're going to do, now it's like really right to the point, and you've not wasted all those steps, but it's using automation. It's still you, and all you're doing is putting that into your welcome onboarding email. Click here for our video onboarding, and you're not doing it.
Well, I give a simple model that years ago when I moved my office from Alexandria to the other part of Alexandria, where my local services are based nowadays, it's that experience where I chose the mover because here's the one who had a video on their website that was explaining, here's how you prepare for the move.
Yeah.
And just realizing they get it. They understand this is what's going to make their job easier and help me to clarify, oh, no, I don't have to wrap everything myself because they're going to do that for me anyway. So, again, how do we replicate, how do we duplicate our own skills and abilities so that now we can provide an even greater service? So it's really always this value-first mindset where we're not having to – this is great for people who perhaps have some sort of wall or some sort of block towards the idea of selling. This really allows you to shift your business to the mindset that we're navigating someone throughout the business-making decision only by educating. And those people that are seeing this is a fit for them, those are the ones that will naturally continue along that progression and take that next step. And respectfully, there will be people who see that, well, this isn't exactly what it turns out I was looking for, and you're saving them time. You're doing them a better service.
You're saving you time, too.
Yes, and it's where you find that random moment that you start to get referrals from people who haven't yet done business with you.
Well, I think you bring up a really interesting point about your example of the mover, and a lot of people hear education-based marketing, content marketing, giving, serving, be a go-giver. All of those things make total sense and are true, but I think sometimes people don't realize what it feels like, looks like, and acts like, in real life. Well, that example of the mover, what would happen if you hadn't seen that video and you went and wrapped all the stuff, and then they came out and they're like, oh, well, we could have done that for you as part of our package, and you kicking yourself because the 3 hours you spent there could have been spent somewhere else. And so I think that being able to realize that in your own self, going, you know what, I was learning, that was educational. They were caring about me, maybe not personally using my name Jason or Mike, but they are caring about their upcoming customer or client, and they're giving them really good information that would help save time. And how can we now do that in our business? Because it's not high, let's close this deal. It's high, what do you need? Let me give you some resources to learn to see if this might be a right fit. And it really is that mindset shift.
That's where I learned early on, if you base every step of the business process upon the premise, how can I make that easier for you? You're operating in the best respect, in my opinion, that I can make this easier on you by making this decision by perhaps here's a tour of the product and here's what you're going to learn inside of it. I can make the process easier for you. And my formula for content marketing is to ride that balance between show and tell, that I can tell you what to do. In fact, I can even show you what to do. Yet, of course, if I'm working in that respect, there's going to be a small group of people who only needed a little bit of a nudge in the right direction, and now they're able to produce their own great results. Fantastic. Keep it up. And there's also people who will get that small win, and whether it's the reciprocity trigger or just authority or just the fact that they're realizing, oh, I can do this, but it's going to be even easier if I buy this product, if I go through this service. So by showing people what to do, it's that willingness to, at times, I've done webinars, I've printed material that's my best content. Yep. And yes, it becomes even easier if I'm there to deliver that message for you to your company, if I'm there to work with you one-to-one, or if you're there in the room with me as part of a classroom environment experiencing it. But again, to go for that mindset that I want you to get that win, I want you to be successful, and to leave people better off whether they're your customers or not is the mindset to bring to it.
Yeah, 100%. Hey, so let's kind of circle back around to one thing that I was thinking of regarding the book title, Hypnotizing 250,000 People. At what point did you realize that when you were doing hypnosis with small groups, larger groups, individuals, that there would be a business application? Because I think most people think of, hypnosis as lose weight, gain weight, stop smoking, whatever these vices are. But at what point did you realize that they had business ramifications as well?
I just had to pause for a second. You said lose weight and gain weight.
Yeah, some people want that, right?
Fun. Well, yeah, it's a very small category, but I've worked with power lifters who are struggling to put on more weight to convince muscles to grow. So, which is a fun transition when the morning appointment was eat less, move more.
Right, and now you're like, pound in the calories.
Ignore that signal, your body is full, which again, they're doing it with proper medical guidance. No, it's where part of my backstory that the worst business advice I ever got is what made me an instant success. I ventured into network marketing as I opened up. And I was getting a lot of negative scarcity thinking around me. It's going to be slow your first year. You don't have any referrals. Maybe you should have started smaller. People won't come see a new person without any testimonials. Mm-hmm. And this was the welcome message. And I call this the power of premise. I refused to buy into that idea. So instead, I took massive action in spite of that negative language. And I was back at the same networking meeting the next month, and I had a fully packed schedule. So within a few weeks, and they're all now going, wait, how'd you do that? Yeah. So the story progresses that now it's a few months later, and I'm now lecturing these people as to how I had done that. So over time, it started as sharing this business knowledge with people in related wellness industries. Of course, I taught other hypnotists how to run the business, but also then suddenly there's a lot of what I'd call hyphenates in these communities. Here's the massage therapist who also was the hypnotist. Here's the nutritionist who also was, and here's the dentist and so forth. So that audience was already there speaking to wellness groups, wellness organizations, and it's where over time as potential clients would track me down, simply Googling my name, they would find everything else that I was up to. Yeah. And you have to kind of hold back because sometimes it is an emotional trigger why someone would reach out to me. Well, yeah, but I've got this fear of public speaking, and they're explaining what's going on. And we're in the dialogue, and sometimes the business knowledge would kind of pop up to go, well, yeah, you're nervous in that presentation, but at the same time, have you tried it this way? Recognizing that it wasn't quite just the speaking, just the strategy needed to be adjusted as well. So it was this natural kind of snowball mechanism that it kind of pivoted to much larger audiences over the years. And it's still maintaining some of those original audiences, but at the same time, as you get down to it, business is business. And we can look at hypnosis. We can even look at the part that your audience might be also a little bit more familiar with, which is called NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, which at its core, all of it is based on effective communication. All of it is based upon how do we calibrate with another person in front of us, get in rapport, and continue that mechanism of conversation in such a way that naturally and ethically guides to the next step. So it's where that person, even coming in with a personal challenge, he's already having a dialogue with himself as to why he can't stop smoking yet. And the dialogue begins to change as a result of the work as to this is why it's every reason he absolutely can. Take that same message and put it into business, where I've had people I've talked to, small business groups, where, well, I see the stuff you're doing, Jason, but, I've got kids and I've got another job. And the response of going, yes, I've got 2 small children as well. Life isn't about finding the time. It's about making the time. Yeah. It's also about having the right principles and strategies in place to make that work. So it was just this natural progression over time. There's a line back to vaudeville theater that the amateur changes their act, the professional changes their audience. And the message really hasn't changed much over the years. It's just now going out to a much broader audience, which again, to embrace in my little community, if I could pull it off in this world of hypnotism, let's now take that out to other businesses as well.
Yeah, which, getting back to your book title, lessons learned from, pick one that we've not talked about. I know you've talked about scaling, and you've talked about automating and one-to-many, not one-to-one, and pulling yourself out of an equation when in reality you could actually make the experience even better and not boring and redundant. What's another lessons learned that you speak to about in the book, as well as with a lot of clients? And we'll use that as our wrap-up, and then we'll learn how we can pick up a copy of your book.
Absolutely. Everything comes down to design systems. So how do you look at every aspect of your business and find that way to systematize it, which sometimes that might mean some of the things we talked about so far. How do I automate something? The story of the moving company that had a video, the story of the video that I put out to private clients, but even the internal workings of the business, where my entry to this was I met a business coach that would spend about a half an hour crafting the welcome message to her new clients, which she was putting a lot of care into it. And I heard that and went, like a TV infomercial, there's got to be a better way. So that evening I went home and I wrote the email out, and I automated it in my email provider at the time. And other than switching email providers and moving my office at one point, that's still the same message I'm using nearly 10 years later. To look at systems as if like a push-button machine, so that if we desire to turn the business on, or even perhaps at some point turn the business off, we know exactly what to do. So I mentioned the network marketing. That's what really got me started. But over time, almost in the way that an actor or a comedian will rehearse material until it's ready and then put it out there, the networking that I did is what I eventually recorded as my videos on my various websites. So eventually things pivoted for me, that all of my business was coming in from people finding the websites, watching the videos. And the systematic mindset came into play because suddenly my hosting company got hacked. Not my websites themselves, but the entire hosting company. And my websites were not being found and not loading for a short period of time, which that could have shut down a business. Yet instead of panic and file for bankruptcy and, turn my tail and run, instead, what were the systems that worked to get me started? Well, I ran those machines once again, as in I was out there doing the legwork, doing the business networking live and in person once again. I was out there rather than one-to-many through a video, instead doing one-to-many by going out and giving talks. So to look at the systemization of something, I mean, if the entire formula of outsourcing, to eventually develop a language, a communication with either one designer or a team of people, that now I have online programs that we're able to launch new modules, and we're really friendly with each other. I pay on a regular basis and we chat on Skype, but one of my primary web programmers, she and I haven't talked in 3 years. Just for the reason we don't really have to, given the things that we do together. It's become a well-oiled machine, and to think about it in terms of systems, as you approach any task, ask yourself, how do I do this once?
I love it. I followed that for years, and I find that it's just you can find the most obscure things that you can apply that to that aren't even business related, even in your personal life, that you can go, why would I do it this way when I can just set this up and boom? And I think that it's a mentality, it's a mindset shift, that why should I be doing whatever this thing is over and over and over when I can set up a quick little system, and it's not coding something in your personal life. Many times it's just, wow, I'm just going to do it this way, and it just makes all the sense in the world. I love that piece of advice.
In the local office, sometimes we have to print and ship things, and it just finally became, here's the rule. We do that on the 30th. None of it is time-based, and it's all like bonuses to online courses, but no, we do that on the 30th. Why? Because that's the day, it's just the last business day of the month now is eventually what that morphed into. But rather than, set up the printer, pull out the packing envelopes and make sure everything's ready, no, we just do that once a month because that's all it needs to be.
When you think about it, It's kind of like I'm sure there's research, just vast amount of research on the rumor that you hear that multitasking is not all that is cracked up to be, right? Because you start doing something and then you jump over to something else and jump back, you lose your train of thought. Well, if you think about something like you were mentioning there, to do this printing, you start this and pull this out. All of the things that it takes to get up and running to do two print runs, when in reality, if you had to do like 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 or more, boy, it might take you 3 extra minutes because you're already in flow. So why crank up that machine to do it twice, save it till the end of the month and do it 10 or 12 times, and you're compressing your time. So it's that kind of thing. It's all of that kind of stuff that I just feel is a aha moment for a lot of people in business or even personal life. I think that's a really big point.
Yeah, the personal hero was Ron Popeil with his Showtime Rotisserie Grill. Set it and forget it.
There you go. Yep, I love it. I used to watch those infomercials all the time. Hey, so what's the best way people can reach out to you, learn more about your programs, and pick up a copy of your book?
Yeah, so the book, if they're listening before January 27th, because actually for the first 2 or 3 days, the book is going to be absolutely free. And to get the instructions for that, plus a couple of free chapters of the book, head over to worksmartbusiness.com. That's going to give you the option to get those free chapters of the book, one unpacking that power of premise, plus a really cool linguistic influence pattern you can use ethically within your business. And then you'll get the instructions in terms of how to get a free digital copy during the launch period. And of course, if you're listening after the 27th, you could still head over to Work Smart Business. It'll still be the same free chapters, but then also it'll point over to Amazon and give you the instructions. And basically for the low investment of a book, simply getting a result from one of the principles or strategies is going to make back that investment and much more. So that's worksmartbusiness.com. To track me down, it's simply jasonlinett.com. And people try to add extra letters to my name. It's easy to remember if you just think there's only 6 letters, Linett. So jasonlinett.com, and I'm on all the social media platforms too as Jason Linett.
Awesome. Well, Jason, thanks so much for coming on the show today. It was a great pleasure to have you on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.